Trinidad and Tobago, I'm hoping that you have a warm cuppa with you as we settle into our second interview of the program. I'm being joined by the chairman of the Tobago Chamber, Martin George. Good morning, Mr. George. How are you doing?
I'm great. Good morning to you, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
So let's talk travel and Tobago tourism. Now, you have been battling and arguing for increased flights to the air bridge. I can tell you, a few weeks ago, I had that experience flying Tobago on standby. It was supposed to be a day trip. I ended up having to finding a hotel to stay overnight and getting up super early in the morning. That wait list life is not for me. So let's talk about your back and forth with Cal, because I also remember when Cal responded and saying that it's not just that easy to add additional flights, and adding additional flights is not going to help their bottom line. Your response was, Tobago cannot be blamed for Cal's financial issues. I want you to take that conversation a little further for me.
Well, I certainly will, because you see, Soini, the very experience you had is the experience that hundreds of thousands of Trinbagonians have had over the years, stranded at either Piarco or A&R Robinson Airport, or even Crown Point Airport when it was named that way, over the years, waiting on a flight either to Tobago or from Tobago. And it is absurd, it is ridiculous, and I will never stop laying the blame squarely at the feet of Caribbean Airlines. They have engaged in all sorts of flights of fancy, all sorts of financial frolics. Do you recall that they bought into Air Jamaica, right? An airline that was making billions of dollars in losses. You making billions of dollars in losses, and you decide you're going to now take your good money and invest in Air Jamaica. Remember, Caribbean Airlines bought into Air Jamaica. Let's not forget that. So what rubbish are they talking about losses on the Tobago Air Bridge when they have been squandering by the billions foolishly in all sorts of, frolics?
Now, that Air Jamaica experience was a few years back, but more recently we had the pandemic and the lockdown. In all fairness to Caribbean Airlines, they weren't flying. Our borders were closed. They were, they really had to...
No, nobody could blame them during the pandemic. That's a different scenario.
So quickly... But so quickly after, I mean, we're now kind of easing back into normal. I mean, we still haven't had people in our studio. That's how slowly some people are moving. Is it fair to expect Caribbean Airlines to have the staff, the manpower, or even the aircraft to go back to the schedule of the past, where it was like every 30 minutes there was a flight?
It is, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Of course it is. I'll tell you why. This is the same Caribbean Airlines that said they are starting a flight from Tobago to New York. So you have the planes, you have the manpower, you have the money, you have the staff to do a Tobago to New York flight. How many people need a Tobago to New York flight on a regular basis? They also said they're starting a Tobago to Barbados flight.
But that's
right?
that's not for tourism.
Need?
Those are not. Don't you think those are smart routes, though? Tobago to New York. Don't you think that's a smart route, especially when we have so much diaspora?
Soini, please. Let me finish. Let me make my point.
Sorry, my bad.
If they have the money and the manpower to do that, then that's the answer to your question. You asked about money and manpower and personnel and staff. So if they have the staff to do that, don't tell me any nonsense about not having the money or staff to do the Tobago run. The Tobago run is an essential run. It is something that is a basic, fundamental human right. Your freedom of movement. And I'll give you an example, Soini. Let's look at it practically. If all of South Trinidad were cut off from North Trinidad every night from 9 p.m. until 6 a.m. in the morning, there'd be riots. People will be burning tires. They'll be protesting. They'll say, but how you could block my access to the rest of the country? That's exactly the situation Tobago faces. You yourself face that. You just told us that. You were cut off. You could not get back to Trinidad. That's the reality. So let's understand it in that context. This is not something that we are saying is a favor or a benefit. This is a fundamental right. And if Cal could find money to engage in all those things, Cal has they're flying to Suriname, they're flying to Cuba. So how come money and manpower and fleet and aircraft, there's not problems for those routes? If you understand me, they recently had a trip where the upper management or the chairman or top executives were in Qatar, and they were talking about trying to get into some arrangement with Qatar Airlines. So you have all these grandiose ideas and plans, but you're telling me your simple basic domestic route, you cannot provide a proper consistent service on it, in terms of not having people stranded, like an important TV producer like Soini Gray can't even get on a flight. So if you can't get on a flight, what you leave for ordinary, humble citizens like myself? So if you can't get on a flight, and that's the point I'm making. So therefore, when you see people crawling out of the woodwork, because I noticed that since they made their statement, every Tom, Dick, and Luchmedial has been crawling out, making statements about losses. What's the logic in that? Does that make any sense? Let me give you some examples. PTSC has been making billions of losses over the years. Would anybody suggest, well, okay, therefore we cut off PTSC totally, shut it down totally, do not provide that service, which is so essential for so many of the elderly persons in our population, simply because it's been making billions of losses over the years? If that's the point, then let's take it to its logical absurdity. HDC has bbeen making billions of dollars of losses. Should we say, therefore, we shut down HDC, we do not provide housing for persons who are in the lower or middle income brackets? Come on, it's palpable, potent, patent, pernicious stupidity.
Okay, you're getting very passionate, but I do have to interject.
I am, because you see, it's something that I'll tell you. There's been so much misinformation bandied about that we need to set the records straight, and we need to hold CAL responsible at all times. They are the source of the problem.
So let me ask this really important question. So let me ask you this question. So one of the recommendations I saw is that we need to reconsider the airbridge cost, and that perhaps there's a special cost a special cost or subsidized cost for residents. I'm really hoping they meant citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and then cost for, I'm really hoping, and cost for non-residents. Is that something the Chamber is willing to support, endorse, or entertain? What is your initial thoughts on that? Especially since Cal's argument is that, the cost of flying of each flight is actually pretty exorbitant, and there needs to be, some honest financial reconsidering of what it takes.
There's nothing wrong in doing as all airlines do. Like, for instance, Soini, I'm sure when you travel, you don't sit in economy like persons like myself. You go in the business class, you go in the first class. Most airlines have that. So therefore, there's nothing wrong with having basically a business fare, right? So you call it a business fare. So therefore, instead of the $300 round trip ticket, you can say the business fare is $750. And I can tell you, from speaking with my clients, my friends, my associates, most business persons will pay that happily. Okay, $750, no problem. Get me on a flight immediately, I'll pay the $750, right? So therefore, having that type of fare, but you have to limit the number of seats you allocate in that regard, because you don't want to create a class system. In other words, for the rich and powerful, that they could just buy their way onto a flight, and then you leave ordinary citizens stranded. But if, say, for instance, on every flight, you allocate maybe 6 of those seats, so therefore somebody who has a medical emergency and they need to get to Trinidad urgently from Tobago, they need some urgent medical care, they can't get a normal seat, so therefore they say, look, I'll pay the $750 because I need to get, or they may have an appointment for an exam or an interview or something of the sort. So having that structure, there's nothing wrong with that. But as I say, you must limit the number of seats, maybe just no more than 5 or 6, to allow that. So therefore, Soini wouldn't have to go and pay more than $750 in a hotel to spend the night, when you're stranded. So
I should have never told you that story. I should have never told you that story. No, but okay. but has the Chamber reached out to Caribbean Airlines to, discuss the issue off outside of the media? Are you all in the process of reaching out to the airline to maybe come to a amicable solution?
Right. Well, we are in the process of putting together a comprehensive proposal for them, and we hope that it is met with, a receptive air. We're also trying to reach out to the Prime Minister, who is the leader of the government, the leader of the cabinet, because at one point in time, I remember Caribbean Airlines giving the reason saying that they are waiting a cabinet decision or cabinet approval for extra flights. And the point is, we've also seen the scenario where even for the cost of keeping the airport open, because that was another excuse that was floated, where it was said the cost to keep the Tobago airport open is one of the disincentives. And that was quickly answered by the Chief Secretary, Mr. Farley Augustine, who said, hey, okay, if that's the problem, we will pay for it. Yeah. We will foot the bill to keep the airport open. So therefore, when they start running out of those excuses, then now they start talking about losses. And that's why I have been so strident and so strong on this point, Srini. Let me tell you, Srini, most of my friends, associates, they tell me, they say, listen, Martin, we would like to come to Tobago, but it's just too much of a hassle. Yeah. You can't get a flight. When you do book a flight, sometimes you're waiting in the airport for hours. They say, listen, it's easier to book a flight and go and have a vacation in Grenada, St. Lucia, Barbados, St. Vincent, any of those other islands.
And that's what Martin, it's really, really important. It's really, really important that I ask you, because you said you're willing to speak to Cal and the Prime Minister. What are some of the initial things that you'll have that you're working on in your draft proposal that you think will get Cal to understand, one, it's necessary, and two, it's a lot more feasible than they think it is? What are some of the things that you all are suggesting?
Right. So now the thing is, in terms of feasibility, I would tell you that, this is not something where you can do a strict cost-benefit analysis to say, well, okay, look, if I'm not making a profit, I can't do it. And that's why I used the examples of so many of our other, institutions. Think of TNTech. TNTech has been making billions of dollars of losses over the years. Would anybody suggest, well, as a result, let's not have electricity and live without electricity because of that? So sometimes because something is an essential service, you have to make the adjustment and say, well, hey, listen, this is something we need to provide, even though it may not necessarily be a financial benefit. And therefore, you look at it from that perspective to start with. And that's what we would want to lay on the table and get the point across to them, that it is an essential service. And it's not just for Tobagonians. There are many Trinidadians who need to come to Tobago for business, for other reasons. They may need to visit relatives. They may need to come for a funeral, a wedding, whatever. The point is, they also are inconvenienced. They also, have challenges with that. You have so many of the service companies that sometimes have to send up workers to Tobago, and it's always a hassle. Listen, let me give you this one, Soini. We've had members of the judiciary, judges and magistrates who have told me personally that they cannot get flights. So in other words, can you imagine a judge has judicial roles and duties to perform, a magistrate has roles and duties to perform, and they cannot get flights to get to and from Tobago. They have to be on a waiting list, just as you spoke about. It is not right. It is not fair, and it is something that we need to fix. In other words, as the saying in the local parlance, they said, "Dance a yard before you dance abroad." Sorry to put it across in the vernacular. No,
that's actually perfect. That is actually perfect. Before I let you go, let's talk about Tobago Carnival, which is another, a nice segue, because if I can't get flights to Tobago, I'm not sure how we're going to Tobago Carnival to either take part or cover. So how has from the Chamber's point of view, how has the planning for Tobago Carnival been, and are you happy with what you've been seeing so far?
Well, I think the question would be more directed at the THA and the committee that they've created to, put this together, because it seems the committee has been meeting, and, sometimes it said the best way to not get anything done is to form committees, and the THA seems very good at forming committees, because up to now, I have not yet seen publicly any schedule of events, any listing of, what would be the shows, etc., where would people go to attend these things, and you're looking at time running out, and they themselves, have gone on a frolic and a joyride to Grenada. Which I consider to be absolute absurdity. You're saying you're going to Grenada to observe Carnival. What stupidity. You have Carnival, the home, the mecca of Carnival, right here in TNT, right in Trinidad, and you talking rubbish about sending a 10-member contingent to go and observe Grenada Carnival. Just say you're sending them on a joyride. If you understand me, let me tell you something. I always speak very plainly, and I speak the truth as far as I know it and understand it, and I speak for Trinidad and Tobago.
Which is why I want to ask this question, because I know you will answer me. You will answer me clearly. What is that about? Why are they going Grenada? Is it no? Seriously, because as you said, Trinidad and Tobago is the mecca of Carnival. Why aren't you? And Trinidad and Tobago is one country. So, what is that about?
Well, I would love you to ask them, because to me it makes absolutely no sense. You have all the persons who are so knowledgeable. I spoke to Dean Akin. Dean said, Martin, boy, I have offered. They have not taken up my offer. I am seeing about, Carnival for next year. If you understand me, you have so many persons who have the knowledge, the ability. I spoke to Johnny Q. Same response I got. So the point is, these are the persons who know the business of Carnival, who are able to make proper inputs. These are the persons you should be speaking to, who in Grenada could help you. For Talpi to be singing, old woman are taking home, old woman are taking home.
Martin George, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And that is a very valid point. I cannot believe you put that song into my head. I hope that you have a fantastic day. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and definitely we're going to have to reach out.
It's always a pleasure.
We're going to have to definitely reach out to the THA and the Tourism Secretary to talk about the plans for Tobago Carnival, which is supposed to be in October. So you're very correct. Time is running out. Let's take a very quick break and come back with more right after this. You have a good day, Martin.